Have you ever wondered why some people seem to dislike you for no reason? You try to be kind, honest, respectful, and yet their eyes harden, their tone turns cold, their silence grows louder. It's not because of who you are, but what you represent. Your calm exposes their chaos. Your confidence unsettles their doubt. Your growth reminds them of the potential they've abandoned. The truth is, their resentment isn't personal, it's a reflection of their own unrest. The Stoics understood this long ago. What others feel about you reveals more about their character than your worth. So stop trying to be understood, stop shrinking to fit their comfort, and start standing in your truth. Because peace isn't found in pleasing others, it's built in mastering yourself. And once you do, no rumor, no envy, no misunderstanding can shake you again. There's a moment that every strong person faces sooner or later. A moment when you walk into a room and feel the air shift. No one says anything, no one looks you in the eye for too long, but you can sense it, the quiet hostility hiding behind polite smiles. It's the strange tension of being disliked without cause, of being silently judged for something you can't identify. At first, you question yourself, did I say something wrong? Did I offend someone? Did I change too much? But deep down, you know you haven't. You're just standing there, breathing, existing, and somehow, that's enough to make someone uncomfortable. I used to think that if I was kind, respectful, and honest, people would mirror that energy back. I thought being genuine would make me likable, that integrity was a language everyone understood. But I learned that goodness doesn't protect you from resentment. Sometimes it invites it. You see, there are people who don't dislike you for what you do. They dislike the reflection of themselves they see in you. Your calm reminds them of their chaos. Your confidence reveals their insecurity. Your discipline exposes their excuses. And instead of confronting what they lack, they aim their discomfort at you. They call it judgment, arrogance, distance, anything to make the mirror less painful to look into. At first, it hurts. You want to explain yourself. You want to be understood. You want to fix it. But you can't reason with someone who's fighting their own shadow. The more you try to prove your intentions, the more they twist them. The more you show warmth, the more they shrink from it. Because your presence doesn't soothe them, it threatens them. You've touched a part of them that they've been avoiding for years. You didn't mean to, but you did. And once that happens, there's nothing you can say to make them see you clearly. I learned this lesson the hard way. There was a time when I thought harmony could be built by effort alone. If I just kept explaining, they'd understand. If I just kept smiling, they'd come around. But people don't see you as you are. They see you through the fog of their fears, their moods, their stories. You become a character in their imagination, not a person in their life. And the more you try to correct that story, the more you lose yourself in it. One day, after another silent rejection that I couldn't explain, I sat alone and asked myself a question. What if it's not me? What if this has nothing to do with who I am, and everything to do with what they refuse to face? That thought changed everything. Because once you stop taking resentment personally, you begin to see the world as it truly is. Not as a reflection of your worth, but as a collection of mirrors showing you the state of others' minds. And when you understand that, you gain a kind of peace that no rumor, no jealousy, no misunderstanding can touch. The Stoics called this peace apatheia, not indifference, but serenity born from clarity. Marcus Aurelius wrote that when someone wrongs you, they wrong themselves first. It took me years to grasp what he meant. The bitterness people direct at you doesn't begin with you, it begins within them. You're just the canvas where they project what they can't accept. Once you see that, compassion replaces confusion. You stop reacting and start observing. You learn that the person who glares at your confidence is terrified of their own doubt. The one who mocks your peace is desperate for it. And the one who calls your stillness arrogance has never known self-control. So don't shrink to make others comfortable. Don't dull your light to avoid envy. Don't contort your truth to fit their insecurity. You are not responsible for someone else's battle with themselves. The Stoics would say, your duty is to live according to virtue, to act with integrity, and let others interpret as they will. You can't change their perception, but you can guard your peace. You can choose to stay centered while the noise swirls around you. You can choose to remain calm in the face of misunderstanding. And in that choice lies your freedom. Still, I know how it feels to sense that quiet dislike, to wonder why your kindness is met with distance, to feel your sincerity bounce off walls of insecurity. But here's the truth no one tells you. Being disliked for being genuine is a sign you're doing something right. It means you've stopped performing and started living. It means your presence carries truth heavy enough to disturb illusions. It means you've become what the Stoics aspired to be, unshaken, authentic, and quietly strong. So if you've felt that silent resistance from others lately, don't see it as rejection. See it as evidence that you're stepping into your own power. Let them misunderstand you. That's their burden, not yours. Because people who are at peace with themselves never resent peace in others. If this message resonates with you, subscribe to this channel, not for me, but for yourself. Every week we explore Stoic truths to help you think deeper, feel calmer, and live stronger. Support this space so we can keep building a community grounded in wisdom and strength. Now let me ask you one question. A. When someone dislikes you for no clear reason, do you try to fix it? B. Or do you stay calm and let your peace speak for itself? Comment your answer below. There was a period in my life when I tried to decode every frown, every silence, every cold tone that met me. I became obsessed with figuring out why some people seemed to recoil from me when all I offered was kindness. It was exhausting living like a detective in my own relationships, analyzing words that weren't spoken, gestures that weren't meant for me. And then one day, I realized something quietly devastating. People don't see you as you are. They see you as they are. That realization hit me like a cold wave. I started to notice how fragile perception really is, how one misplaced word or misunderstood tone can twist an entire image. I'd send a message with no hidden meaning, and somehow it became proof of arrogance. I'd try to set a boundary, and it was mistaken for rejection. I'd stay silent to stay calm, and my silence was labeled pride. The truth was simple but uncomfortable. Everyone filters reality through their own emotional weather. What they think of you has more to do with the storm inside them than the calm inside you. Once I understood that, I saw the futility in trying to be understood by everyone. You could explain yourself for hours and still be seen as the villain in someone else's story. Because people aren't listening to you, they're listening to the voice of their own past, their fears, their insecurities. They don't hear your words. They hear their interpretations. And there's nothing more dangerous to peace than the constant need to explain your soul to those determined to misread it. The Stoics faced this too. Epictetus taught that our suffering doesn't come from events themselves, but from the way we interpret them. What he didn't add, but must have known, is that other people's suffering works the same way. They don't dislike your actions. They dislike the meaning they attach to them. You can't control that meaning. You can only control how much of your peace you sacrifice trying to change it. I remember one particular moment when this truth became impossible to ignore. I had said something in passing, nothing cruel, just honest, and it spread through whispers faster than wildfire. By the end of the week, I was no longer a person in their eyes. I was an idea they'd built, a caricature born of assumption. At first, I panicked. I drafted explanations, I crafted clarifications. But something inside me said, wait. So I didn't say a word. And over time, I watched the rumor fade, not because I fought it, but because it ran out of oxygen. Silence, I learned, has its own gravity. It unsettles those who need chaos to feel alive. It confuses those who expect defense, Because silence can't be argued with, it must be faced. When you choose silence from a place of clarity, it isn't weakness. It's precision. It says, I see your storm, but I won't enter it. From that moment, I began to guard my peace the way others guard their image. I stopped chasing understanding and started choosing serenity. When someone misunderstood me, I asked myself a simple question. Does this misunderstanding threaten my integrity, or just my ego? Most of the time, it was the latter. And when you learn to tell the difference, your life gets lighter. I won't pretend it's easy. To stay silent when accused, to stay kind when mocked, to stay calm when misread. These are acts of strength that go unnoticed by the noisy world. But the reward is priceless, a peace that no opinion can buy or steal. Marcus Aurelius wrote, if you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it. I think of that line often, especially when the urge to defend myself rises. The older I get, the more I understand that peace is not the absence of conflict. It's the refusal to let conflict live inside you. So now, when I'm misunderstood, I breathe. I stay quiet. I remind myself that perception is smoke, and smoke always clears. The truth, like light, doesn't argue, it simply reveals. And one day, when the noise dies and the stories fade, people see what was always there. Not arrogance, not distance, but calm. The kind of calm that comes from knowing that no misunderstanding can diminish what's true. There was a point when I began to understand that peace, real peace, comes at a cost. You start to notice that the more you grow, the fewer people can meet you where you are. The same conversations that once felt easy now drain you. The laughter that once bonded you now feels hollow. You look around and realize that somewhere along the way, you've outgrown the world that used to feel like home. And it's a strange kind of loneliness, not because you're abandoned, but because you've evolved. When I started choosing discipline over comfort, honesty over approval, solitude over noise, something subtle began to happen. The invitations stopped. The messages grew shorter. The people who once praised my ambition began calling me distant. I didn't change to reject them, I changed to respect myself. But growth has a way of making others question their own stagnation. Your stillness becomes a mirror that exposes their distractions. Your focus reminds them of everything they keep postponing. Your authenticity feels like an accusation against the roles they still play. I remember sitting across from an old friend one night, realizing we were no longer speaking the same language. He talked about people, trends, weekend escapes. I talked about clarity, purpose, the peace of a quiet morning. Our words met in the middle but never connected. That's when I understood. Sometimes the distance you feel from others isn't a tragedy, it's alignment. The deeper you root yourself in truth, the smaller your circle becomes. And that's not rejection. It's refinement. The Stoics knew this well. They didn't seek to be surrounded, they sought to be sincere. Epictetus said, "If you wish to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid." It's a line I carry with me, because when you start living intentionally, you'll often be misunderstood by the impulsive. You'll be mocked by those who confuse motion with meaning, who mistake noise for life. But the longer you walk this quieter path, the more you realize that solitude isn't emptiness, it's space. The space where wisdom finally has room to speak. There's a paradox in this kind of transformation. You lose the approval of the crowd, but you gain the respect of your soul. You stop needing validation because peace becomes its own reward. You stop seeking connection just to fill silence, because the silence itself begins to heal you. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." And when your thoughts grow deep, your soul stops blending in with shallow ones. That's the part no one tells you about peace. It can be isolating at first. You'll question if you've gone too far, if you've become cold, if the path of inner calm is worth the loneliness it brings. But over time, that solitude transforms. It stops feeling like an absence and starts feeling like power. Because when you can stand alone, you stop being dependent on agreement, attention, or approval. You no longer fear being misunderstood, because your clarity has become its own companion. The world tells you to stay connected, to never drift too far from the crowd. But sometimes, drifting away is how you find your center. And when you finally do, you realize that peace was never about being liked, it was about being free. There was a time when I believed that truth always spoke louder than lies. That if you lived with honesty and kindness, people would see you clearly. But I was wrong. The older I get, the more I understand that truth doesn't shout, it endures. And endurance is quiet. It doesn't chase rumor. It doesn't defend itself. It simply stands unmoved, unbroken, undeniable with time. I remember when whispers began to circle my name. Nothing dramatic, nothing public, just small distortions passed from mouth to mouth, each one bending reality a little more. It's strange how quickly fiction travels when people are hungry for distraction. One false sentence can undo months of sincerity. But the Stoics were right. Your integrity is your fortress. I didn't run after the stories. I didn't try to correct every misunderstanding. I simply kept living as I always had. Because if the truth isn't visible in how you live, no argument will make it visible in how you speak. At first, that silence felt unbearable. Every instinct urged me to explain myself, to shout my innocence into the noise. But then I realized something. The more you chase falsehood, the more you give it life. The moment you stop feeding it, it starves. So I stayed silent. And I learned that silence, when rooted in clarity, is not weakness. It's strength in its purest form. It's the confidence to let time reveal what words cannot. Rumors have a life cycle. They burn bright, then burn out. But integrity, real integrity, outlives them all. People might believe lies for a season, but they return to truth when the noise fades, because truth has gravity. It pulls everything false back toward it, eventually. And that's what I started to trust, not people's opinions, but the weight of reality itself. I saw how those who spread gossip were rarely at peace. They spoke not to inform, but to distract themselves from their own insecurities, their own unexamined pain. Gossip is rarely about others. It's a mirror of our need to feel superior, relevant, or right. The Stoics warned against this disease of the tongue. Seneca wrote, "Associate with people who will make you better." And I realized that to keep my peace, I had to guard my company as fiercely as I guarded my thoughts. One by one, I began to distance myself from noise people who found comfort in tearing others apart, who measured their worth in comparison, who needed drama to feel alive. I chose stillness instead, not because I was above them, but because I was finally learning the art of preservation, the art of not giving energy to things that don't deserve it. The irony is that once you stop reacting, the world doesn't know what to do with you. Silence disarms those who live on conflict. When they realize you won't engage, they eventually turn their noise inward. And while they're busy shouting into the void, you've already moved on calmer, clearer, untouchable. Now when I hear my name in conversations, I don't flinch. I let them speak. Because the people who matter will always feel the difference between rumor and reality. And those who believe lies never truly knew you anyway. The Stoics would call that freedom, not the absence of judgment, but the mastery of response. The ability to walk through noise and remain still. And that stillness, once you find it, becomes your greatest power. There came a time when I realized that not every battle was meant to be fought, and not every form of dislike needed to be understood. Some things aren't meant to be fixed, they're meant to be released. I began to notice that the people who seemed to resent me most were the ones wrestling with themselves. They weren't reacting to me, they were reacting to their own reflection. My calm disturbed their chaos. My focus exposed their distractions. My freedom reminded them of the cages they had built for themselves. And though I didn't intend to, my presence forced them to confront the parts of their life they'd been avoiding. At first, I took that personally. I thought I was doing something wrong, that if I just softened myself a little, they'd stop projecting their pain onto me. But it never worked. Because when people haven't made peace with themselves, they will always find someone to blame for the unrest inside. They will see you not as you are, but as the embodiment of what they fear or envy or long for. And you can't heal someone by absorbing their shadow. The Stoics taught that each person is responsible for their own soul. You can show empathy, yes, but you cannot carry their awakening for them. There was a moment that changed everything for me. Someone I once cared for deeply turned cold overnight. No reason, no explanation. Just distance, silence, and that invisible wall of unspoken resentment. I replayed every memory in my head, looking for the moment I must have failed. But then it hit me, they weren't angry at me. They were angry at their own reflection in me. I had become the mirror of everything they didn't want to face, their lack of direction, their unhealed wounds, their forgotten potential. And so to silence the discomfort, they had to silence me. That realization hurt, but it freed me. Seneca once wrote, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." He was right. Most of our pain doesn't come from what others do to us. It comes from what we imagine their actions mean. When I stopped imagining, I found peace. When I stopped trying to be understood, I found strength. And when I stopped needing approval, I found freedom. The world didn't suddenly become kinder. I just became clearer. That clarity changed the way I saw everything. I began to understand that solitude wasn't punishment, it was refinement. That silence wasn't emptiness, it was transformation. The more I leaned into it, the more I realized that I didn't need to be defended, explained, or accepted. My peace was no longer up for negotiation. It wasn't arrogance. It was self-respect. When you stop depending on the validation of others to feel worthy, something inside you stabilizes. You stop vibrating at the frequency of noise. You begin to move through the world like still water, calm, deep, unbothered. And then something unexpected happens. You start to attract people who see you clearly, not through the lens of their insecurity, but through the light of their own growth. They don't need to compete with you, or understand you, or fix you. They simply meet you where peace lives. These people are rare, but you'll know them instantly. They don't demand your energy. They match it. They don't disturb your stillness. They protect it. They don't need your validation. They already have their own. And in their presence, you'll realize that what you once called loneliness was just the space being cleared for the right connections to enter. That's the gift of self-mastery. When you stop chasing, you start attracting. When you stop explaining, you start embodying. And when you stop reacting, you start leading. The Stoics called this the highest form of freedom, to be the master of your own mind. Epictetus said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." And I think that's what we're all really searching for, not approval, not popularity, not belonging, but mastery. The kind of mastery that makes you untouchable in a world addicted to reaction. So if you're in that season where the world feels quieter, where some people are drifting away, where misunderstandings echo louder than truth, don't fight it. You're not being abandoned. You're being refined. The people who can no longer match your peace will naturally fall away. And those meant for you will arrive without noise, without confusion, without resistance. Let them find you calm. Let them find you whole. And if these words have found you at the right moment, take them as a reminder. Your peace is not arrogance. Your silence is not weakness, and your solitude is not emptiness. They are the proof that you are becoming who you were always meant to be. If this message spoke to you, subscribe to this channel not for me, but for yourself. Because every lesson we explore here is a step towards strength, clarity, and freedom. And when you walk that path long enough, you'll discover the greatest truth of all. The calmest soul in the room is the one who no longer needs to explain itself.